Welcome to the HFY Tales channel. Remember to like and subscribe if you like the story. Enjoy and take care.
The news swept across every screen on Earth in an instant. A derelict ship had landed on a remote island in the Pacific, and for the first time in human history, an alien species had made contact. Not with words or diplomacy, just a silent arrival that left the world in a state of tense anticipation. Dr. Aaron Blake stared at his television screen, the muted chaos of reporters and scientists filling the background of the footage. The derelict were a mystery, their culture and intentions unknown. Standing 8 feet tall, with elongated limbs and dark, iridescent skin, they looked like something out of humanity's darkest dreams. Yet they had never made an aggressive move. They hadn't even tried to speak. Why now? Aaron muttered to himself, rubbing his temples. He had spent years preparing for this moment, studying the psychological and cultural implications of first contact. As an anthropologist who specialized in xenocultures, he had written countless papers on how humanity should approach otherworldly species, but no one had ever really expected it to happen this soon. It had been a few months since the derelict ships had first appeared in Earth's orbit. There had been no invasion, no attempt to communicate, just observation. They watched from afar, with their towering ships casting shadows over cities, their intentions hidden behind the cold, reflective surfaces of their vessels. World governments had debated, panicked, and prepared for the worst. Now, with a derelict ship landed on Earth, the silence felt even heavier. People were afraid, terrified of what these aliens might want, of what their presence meant for the future of humanity. Aaron knew, deep down, that fear would get humanity nowhere. The only way to move forward was to understand the derelict, to build a bridge between two worlds. But that required courage, and so far, no one had been willing to take the risk. Until now. The phone on his desk buzzed. It was an encrypted line, one that very few people had access to. With a deep breath, Aaron picked it up. Blake speaking. Dr. Blake, this is Admiral Patterson with the United Earth Defense Coalition. The voice on the other end was curt, no nonsense. You've been recommended for a special assignment. Aaron sat up straighter. What kind of assignment? The Admiral's voice dropped, heavy with the weight of the world. We need someone to make contact with the derelict. They've landed. They aren't making any moves, but they're there. We believe they're waiting for us. His heart pounded. This was the moment he had been waiting for his entire career, but the gravity of it felt like a stone pressing on his chest. And why me? You're one of the few people with the knowledge and experience to understand alien cultures. More importantly, you've shown willingness to approach them with peace rather than fear. This is a delicate situation. If we send soldiers, it could escalate. Aaron swallowed. And you want me to go alone? We'll have you monitored and protected. But yes, you'll be the face of humanity. We need someone who can represent us with intelligence and empathy. Someone who can talk to them, if they even want to talk. A long silence stretched between them. Aaron's mind raced, picturing the towering figure of a derelict waiting for him on that island. The images he had seen, tall, imposing beings with dark, reflective eyes, and a form of communication that no one understood yet. He thought about the fear gripping the world and the responsibility that was being thrust upon him. I'll do it, Aaron finally said. His voice sounded steadier than he felt inside. Good. You'll leave in the morning. Be ready. The line went dead, and Aaron stared at the phone for a moment longer. This was it. His chance. The world's chance. And it all rested on his shoulders. The helicopter's blades cut through the thick, humid air as it approached the remote island where the derelict ship had landed. Aaron sat strapped in, staring out the window as the vast blue ocean below slowly gave way to the small strip of land that now held the attention of the entire world. Beside him sat 2 military officers, their expressions hard and focused. They were a part of the security detail, assigned to protect Aaron from a distance. No one wanted to risk a full military encounter, but no one was naive enough to believe he should go entirely unguarded. Aaron could feel the weight of their unspoken judgment. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a hero. He was a scientist, an academic who spent his life studying civilizations long gone, trying to make sense of human nature by looking at ancient ruins and old languages. And yet, here he was, on his way to meet an alien species that no one truly understood. "What if they don't want to talk?" he asked aloud, his voice barely audible over the roar of the helicopter. The officer next to him glanced over. "Then you back away, and we do our job." Aaron nodded, though the answer didn't settle his nerves. He wasn't just worried about the aliens. He was worried about how easily this fragile moment could spiral out of control. One wrong move, one miscommunication, and the entire world could be plunged into chaos. The island grew larger in the distance, and soon, the helicopter descended, the sound of the blades reverberating through the dense trees and rocky terrain. From the air, Aaron could already see the Drellic ship, a sleek, dark structure that looked like a monolith rising out of the earth. It was massive, dwarfing everything around it. No windows, no visible weapons, just an impenetrable, almost organic structure that seemed to absorb the light around it. The helicopter touched down, and the soldiers immediately disembarked, scanning the perimeter. Aaron stepped out last, his heart pounding as he took in the alien craft. Even from a distance, he could feel the presence of the Drellic inside. The air was heavy, thick with tension. "Stay here," the commanding officer said, motioning for Aaron to wait while they secured the area. He and the other soldiers moved cautiously toward the ship, their hands on their weapons, but refraining from drawing them. Aaron stayed back, watching, his mind racing. This was it, the moment he had been preparing for. Yet nothing could truly prepare him for the sight of the alien craft. The way it seemed to pulse with a strange, unearthly energy. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. After a few minutes, the officer returned. "It's clear. No movement from the ship. It's just there." Aaron nodded, his hands trembling slightly as he adjusted the strap of the small bag he carried. Inside were a few items he thought might be useful: scientific instruments, a portable translator, and, most importantly, a small gift he had brought as a gesture of goodwill. It was a simple object, a handcrafted wooden sculpture from an indigenous culture. He hoped it would convey a message of peace. The soldiers gave him the all-clear, and with one last deep breath, Aaron began walking toward the ship. His footsteps felt heavy, as if each step brought him closer to an unknown fate. His heart hammered in his chest, and his mouth felt dry. As he neared the ship, a soft hum filled the air, like a low-frequency vibration that he could feel in his bones. The surface of the ship was smooth, dark, and slightly reflective, but there were no visible doors, no clear entrance. And then, with a suddenness that made him jump, part of the ship's exterior shifted. It wasn't like a door opening, but more as if the surface had melted and reformed, creating an entrance that beckoned him inside. Aaron hesitated, his eyes wide as he stared at the opening. The soldiers behind him tensed, their hands hovering over their weapons. "It's okay," Aaron called back, his voice shaking slightly. "I'm going in." He took a step forward, and the hum grew louder. The opening was dark, but Aaron forced himself to keep moving. He felt like he was walking into the mouth of something ancient, something alive. His mind raced with all the possibilities of what could happen inside that ship. As he crossed the threshold, the air changed. It was cooler inside, the light dim, but his eyes quickly adjusted. The interior of the ship was as sleek and strange as the exterior, smooth, black surfaces that seemed to curve in unnatural ways. There were no visible controls, no obvious signs of technology, just a vast, open space that made him feel incredibly small. And then he saw it. At the far end of the room, standing tall and motionless, was the Drellic, 8 feet tall, its body elongated and covered in smooth, dark skin that shimmered faintly in the dim light. Its limbs were long and thin, with joints that bent at odd angles, and its face, if it could even be called that, was almost featureless, with 2 large, reflective eyes that stared directly at Aaron. He froze. This was it, the moment he had both feared and longed for. The alien didn't move, didn't make a sound, but Aaron could feel its presence like a weight pressing down on him. For what felt like an eternity, they stood in silence, simply looking at each other. Aaron's mind raced with 1,000 thoughts, but none of them felt adequate. What was he supposed to say? What words could possibly bridge the gap between 2 species so different? Finally, Aaron took a deep breath and reached into his bag. Pulling out the small wooden sculpture he had brought, he held it out in front of him, offering it to the alien. "I come in peace," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The Drelic's eyes flickered, and for the first time, it moved. The Drelic moved slowly, its long limbs unfolding with a deliberate grace. As it stepped toward Aaron, the room seemed to pulse with an almost imperceptible vibration, a hum that Aaron felt deep in his chest. It was as if the ship itself was responding to the alien's movement. Aaron stood his ground, heart pounding, holding the wooden sculpture out in front of him like an offering. He could feel the sweat on his palms, the slight tremble in his hands, but he forced himself to stay calm. This was what he had come for, to make contact, to bridge the divide between two vastly different species. Yet, in the presence of this towering alien, the enormity of that task weighed on him like never before. The Drelic stopped a few feet away from him, its reflective black eyes locked onto the small wooden object in his hand. Aaron couldn't tell if it understood the significance of the gift, but after a few tense moments, the alien reached out with one of its long, thin arms. Its fingers, though delicate, were nearly as long as Aaron's forearm, and they wrapped around the sculpture with a gentleness that surprised him. The Drelic lifted the object, examining it closely. For a long moment, it simply stood there, holding the wooden figure in its strange hands, its eyes flickering with some unreadable emotion, or perhaps thought. Aaron took a slow breath, trying to steady his nerves. This was the first true interaction between a human and a Drelic. He had no idea what would happen next, whether the alien would understand the gesture, whether it would accept the gift as a symbol of peace. But he hoped, with every fiber of his being, that this would be the beginning of something greater. The silence stretched on, broken only by the soft hum that filled the air. Then, without warning, the Drelic turned its head, its gaze locking onto Aaron. In one fluid motion, it extended the sculpture back toward him, as if returning the gift. Aaron hesitated for a moment, unsure of what the gesture meant. Was the alien rejecting his offering? Or was this some kind of ritual exchange, a test of understanding? He reached out, taking the sculpture back into his hands, his mind racing with the possibilities. Just as his fingers closed around the object, a sound, a deep, resonant hum, emanated from the Drelic. It wasn't a word, not in the human sense, but a vibration that filled the air and reverberated through Aaron's bones. It was communication, though not the kind he had expected. The sound washed over him, and for a moment, Aaron felt an overwhelming sense of connection. It was as if the alien was reaching into his mind, not with words, but with feelings, emotions, ideas, impressions that defied language. He couldn't quite grasp the meaning, but he understood one thing. The Drelic wasn't hostile. It wasn't here to harm him. It was curious, cautious, but willing to communicate. Aaron's breath caught in his throat as he realized what was happening. The Drelic was using a form of communication that went beyond spoken language, something more primal, more intuitive. It was trying to connect with him on a deeper level. He closed his eyes for a moment, focusing on the sensations the sound evoked. It was like standing in the middle of a great, unseen force, powerful, ancient, but not malevolent. There was a sense of awe, of wonder, but also of hesitation. The Drelic was just as unsure as he was, navigating the unknown with the same mixture of fear and curiosity. When Aaron opened his eyes, the alien had taken a step back, its posture relaxed, though its large, dark eyes never left him. The tension in the air seemed to dissipate slightly, replaced by a fragile, tentative understanding. Aaron took a small step forward, holding the wooden sculpture close to his chest. "Thank you," he said softly, not sure if the alien could understand his words, but feeling the need to express his gratitude nonetheless. The Drelic tilted its head slightly, and Aaron could have sworn he saw a flicker of recognition in its gaze. He wanted to say more, to ask questions, to delve into the mysteries of this incredible species, but he knew that communication would have to be slow, careful. The Drelic made another low, vibrating sound, this time softer, almost melodic. It wasn't a word, but it felt like a response. Aaron's heart swelled with hope. This was a beginning, fragile but real. Suddenly, a voice crackled through the small earpiece Aaron was wearing. "Blake, are you okay?" What's happening in there? He had almost forgotten about the team monitoring him from a distance. Aaron touched the earpiece, his voice calm but firm. I'm fine. The Drellic, it's communicating, but not with words. I think we're starting to understand each other. There was a long pause on the other end before the voice responded. Understood. Stay alert. We're ready to intervene if needed. Aaron nodded, even though the others couldn't see him. He turned his attention back to the Drellic, who was still watching him intently. For the first time, Aaron noticed a slight shift in the alien's posture, a subtle softening that made it seem less imposing, less distant. He took another step forward, raising a hand slowly, carefully, as if offering a handshake. Though he had no idea if the gesture would be understood, the Drellic's eyes flickered again, and then, to Aaron's surprise, it extended one of its long, thin arms toward him. The alien's fingers brushed against Aaron's hand, the contact light but unmistakable. A shiver ran down Aaron's spine, not from fear, but from the sheer wonder of the moment. They were touching, human and alien, two beings from different worlds, connected in a way that transcended words. Aaron smiled, a small, tentative smile, but one filled with genuine emotion. This was it. This was the beginning of something new, something hopeful. Aaron stood still, his hand resting lightly against the alien's elongated fingers. The contact was fleeting, but in that brief moment, it felt like the divide between two worlds had closed, if only by a fraction. The Drellic's skin was cool to the touch, almost metallic, but its gentleness took Aaron by surprise. As the alien pulled its hand back, Aaron could feel the shift in the atmosphere. There was no need for words, no need for any complex gestures. The Drellic had made its intentions clear. It was willing to continue this tentative exchange. The uncertainty that had once filled the air was now replaced with cautious curiosity on both sides. Aaron took a step back, giving the alien space, and then gestured toward the area around them. He wanted to communicate, but the language barrier felt insurmountable. Yet, after the subtle exchange of emotions earlier, he wondered if communication didn't require traditional words. He cleared his throat, then pointed to himself. Aaron, he said, his voice gentle but firm. The Drellic tilted its head slightly, its large, dark eyes never leaving Aaron. There was no immediate response, no sound, but Aaron had a sense that the alien understood what he was trying to convey. Again, Aaron pointed to himself. Aaron, he repeated. The Drellic's body shifted, the soft hum filling the air again, but this time it was quieter, less intense. Then, in a low, resonant voice that seemed to echo through the room, the alien spoke a single word. Vron. Aaron's eyes widened in surprise. The voice was deep, almost musical, with a timbre that reverberated through the ship. He hadn't expected the alien to speak, or at least not in a way that resembled human language. But here it was, offering its name as plainly as he had offered his own. Vron, Aaron repeated, his voice steady. The name rolled off his tongue, unfamiliar but not entirely foreign. Vron gave a slight nod, its gaze unwavering. There was a quiet dignity to its movements, a kind of grace that made Aaron feel both small and honored to be in its presence. The alien seemed to radiate an energy that was both powerful and restrained, as though it held within it a vast well of knowledge and emotion, carefully controlled. Feeling encouraged by this exchange, Aaron decided to try something more. He reached into his bag once again, pulling out a small tablet. It was equipped with a basic translation program that could analyze languages, though it had never been tested on anything as foreign as the Drellic. Still, he figured it was worth a try. He held up the tablet, showing it to Vron. The alien's eyes flicked to the screen, observing the device with what seemed like interest. Aaron tapped on the screen, activating the program, and then began to speak. Human, he said slowly, pointing to himself, and then typing the word human into the tablet. The screen displayed the word, alongside an image of a human figure. Vron's eyes flickered, but there was no immediate response. Aaron continued, showing different images, Earth, the stars, and finally, an image of the Drellic ship that had landed. Each time, he spoke the word aloud, hoping the alien would understand the intent behind the demonstration. After a few moments, Vron made a low sound, something that was neither a word nor a hum, but more like a pulse of energy. The alien pointed to itself, its long fingers brushing against its chest, and then spoke again in that deep, resonant voice. Drellick. Aaron's heart skipped a beat. The alien had understood. It was communicating slowly, carefully, but communicating nonetheless. The sense of awe that had been building within him swelled. This was more than he had hoped for. They were making progress. He nodded, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Drellick, he repeated softly. Yes. Vron's gaze remained fixed on Aaron, its posture relaxed but focused. The alien seemed to be processing the interaction, understanding it on some level, but there was still an air of caution, a sense that both of them were walking a tightrope between discovery and uncertainty. Suddenly, the atmosphere in the room shifted. The low hum that had been filling the space grew louder, vibrating through the walls of the ship. Aaron looked around, startled, and then his earpiece crackled to life again. Blake, are you picking up on this? There's a surge of energy coming from the ship. What's happening in there? Aaron quickly responded. It's fine. I think it's part of their communication. The alien, Vron, is responding to what I've shown it. There was a pause on the other end, then a more urgent voice. Blake, be careful. We're detecting fluctuations in the energy output. We don't know what that ship is capable of. Aaron swallowed hard, glancing back at Vron. The alien seemed unaffected by the hum, standing calmly, as if the vibrations were natural, perhaps even comforting. But to Aaron, they felt like a storm brewing just beneath the surface. He held his breath, waiting, wondering what would happen next. Then, without warning, the hum stopped. The room fell silent once more. Vron's gaze softened slightly, and for the first time, Aaron saw something in those dark, reflective eyes that he hadn't expected: emotion. It was faint, subtle, but it was there. Not fear, not aggression, but something akin to understanding. Maybe even empathy. Before Aaron could say anything, Vron took a step forward and reached out again, this time pointing toward the tablet in Aaron's hand. The alien tapped the screen lightly, its long fingers barely touching the surface, but it was enough to convey a sense of interest. Aaron blinked, his heart racing. You want to learn more? He asked, unsure if his question would be understood. Vron didn't respond with words, but the gesture was clear. The alien was curious. It wanted to know more about humanity, about the world Aaron had shown it, about the people who had come to this fragile moment in history. Aaron exhaled slowly, his fear fading into the background, replaced by a sense of hope. He had come here to build a bridge between two worlds, and now, for the first time, he felt that it was truly possible. The silence that followed was heavy, but not with tension, rather with anticipation. Aaron held the tablet in his hands, realizing that the opportunity before him was larger than he'd ever imagined. Vron, this towering alien figure, was showing a desire to understand, to learn. This was the breakthrough he had hoped for, the beginning of true communication between their species. Aaron took a deep breath, steadying his hands as he began typing again. He decided to show more about humanity, about Earth, about what they shared and how they differed. He pulled up images of human achievements, landscapes, and cultures, explaining in simple terms, hoping the images and their context would be enough. This, Aaron said, showing a picture of Earth from space, is our home, Earth. Vron's eyes flickered as it leaned forward, observing the planet on the screen. Its long, thin fingers moved toward the tablet once again, this time hovering over the image of Earth. There was something almost reverent in the way the alien examined the image, as though it were trying to understand not just the visual, but the deeper meaning behind the planet, its life, its people, its history. Aaron switched to another image, this time of a human family, parents holding their children, all smiling at the camera. He pointed to the picture and spoke slowly. Family, important to us. We protect each other. Vron stared at the image, its posture slightly shifting. There was a long, low hum that resonated from the alien, and Aaron felt it vibrate through the floor beneath his feet. It was almost as though Vron was responding emotionally. Though Aaron could not decipher exactly what it was feeling, he could sense something stirring within the alien. The hum continued, and then, in a gesture that took Aaron by surprise, Vron extended its long arm and pointed to itself. The alien's deep voice reverberated through the air again. Drellic family. Aaron's eyes widened. The word was clear, the meaning unmistakable. The Drellic, too, had a concept of family. Perhaps it wasn't identical to the human idea, but the fact that Vron was making the connection filled Aaron with a sense of exhilaration. Yes, Aaron said, his voice filled with enthusiasm. Family. You understand. For the first time since they had met, Vron's body shifted in a way that Aaron interpreted as relief. If aliens could feel such a thing. It was subtle, but the alien's posture softened, and the once intimidating aura that had surrounded it seemed to fade. Aaron's heart swelled. He was no longer standing before a cold, distant creature, but a being that shared some of the same core values as humanity. Vron pointed to the tablet again, this time using more deliberate motions. It tapped the image of Earth, then tapped its chest. The meaning was clear. Vron was asking Aaron to show more about where the Drellic came from. Aaron's mind raced. This was a golden opportunity to learn about the Drellic's world, but it was also delicate. He had to be careful not to push too hard or too fast. The Drellic were cautious, and though Vron seemed willing to share, there were still boundaries that Aaron needed to respect. I don't know where your home is, Aaron said, hoping his words would make sense. Can you show me? Vron made a low, resonant sound, and then did something Aaron had not expected. The alien raised its arm and waved it across the air, as if gesturing to something unseen. Suddenly, the walls of the room began to shimmer, and the surface of the ship's interior transformed. The black, glossy walls faded away, replaced by a vast, star-filled sky. Aaron gasped, his breath catching in his throat as he found himself standing in what felt like the middle of space. Planets and stars glittered around him, and far in the distance, he could see the swirling colors of a nebula, vibrant and awe-inspiring. And there, in the center of the display, was a planet. It was unlike Earth. The surface was dark, almost black, with swirling clouds of violet and deep red. The planet's atmosphere glowed faintly, as though the entire world was alive with some kind of energy. It was beautiful in a strange, alien way. Vron pointed to the planet and spoke. Drellic. Aaron stared at the planet, awestruck. This was their home, the world the Drellic had come from, a place so far removed from anything humans had ever seen. The sheer scale of it overwhelmed him. He couldn't begin to fathom what life was like on such a world, but now, he had a glimpse into the universe from the Drellic's perspective. That's your home, Aaron whispered, as if speaking too loudly might shatter the illusion. It's incredible. Vron's deep hum filled the air once again, and Aaron felt the connection between them grow stronger. The Drellic were not invaders, not conquerors. They were explorers. Just like humanity, they had left their world behind to seek something new. Perhaps understanding, perhaps companionship. And now, in this moment, they had found it. For a while, neither of them spoke. Aaron stood in silence, taking in the vast, alien world displayed before him, while Vron remained beside him, calm and patient. It was a moment of shared wonder, of mutual discovery. Finally, Aaron broke the silence. Why did you come here? To Earth. Vron turned its head slightly, the deep, resonant hum quieting for a moment. Then, after a long pause, the alien spoke a single word. Peace. Aaron's heart skipped a beat. He stared at Vron, the weight of that word hanging in the air between them. For so long, humanity had feared the Drellic, had wondered if they were a threat, a force that would bring destruction. But now, standing in the presence of this alien being, Aaron understood. They had come for peace. Aaron felt the weight of Vron's single word echo in the silence, peace. The realization hit him hard. All the fear, all the tension that had gripped humanity since the Drellic first appeared now seemed misplaced. These towering, imposing aliens hadn't come to conquer or destroy. They had come seeking peace. But why? What did peace mean to a species so vastly different from humans? Before Aaron could ask more, the shimmering stars and distant planet of Drellic faded from the ship's walls, returning the room to its sleek, dark interior. Vron took a step back, its reflective eyes locked onto Aaron, waiting. Aaron swallowed, his thoughts racing. He knew this moment was critical. Vron had opened a door, a small one, but a door nonetheless. If he handled this right, he could learn more, forge a real bond between their species. If he misstepped, it could all come crashing down. Peace, Aaron repeated softly. He chose his next words carefully. We want peace too. But why did you leave your home to find us? What are you looking for? Vron's gaze flickered with something Aaron couldn't quite read. Was it hesitation? Uncertainty? The alien made a soft, low hum, almost like a sigh, and then turned its head slightly, as if contemplating Aaron's question. When Vron finally spoke, its voice was slow, deliberate. We travel. Long time. Many stars. Many worlds. Aaron nodded, listening intently. The Drellic had been exploring for a long time, searching across the galaxy. But what were they seeking? Vron's hum deepened, and it gestured to Aaron, then to the walls around them, as if encompassing the ship and all of Earth. We find you, not like others. Aaron's breath caught in his throat. Others, he asked. You mean other species? Vron's head tilted slightly in acknowledgement. Yes, many others, but none like you. The gravity of what Vron was saying hit Aaron like a wave. The Drellic had encountered other intelligent life forms across the galaxy, but none had been like humans. What made humanity different? What had drawn the Drellic to Earth? Before Aaron could ask, Vron continued, its deep voice vibrating through the room. Others war, conflict, destruction, no peace. Aaron's chest tightened. He had suspected it. Other species had been found by the Drellic, but those encounters had ended in violence. It was no wonder the Drellic had been so cautious in approaching Earth. They had seen war, seen worlds torn apart by conflict, and now they were here, searching for something different, searching for peace. Aaron's voice was soft when he spoke. You came here because you thought we might be different. Vron's eyes remained locked onto his, and though the alien didn't speak, the answer was clear. Yes, they had come to Earth hoping that humanity, with all its flaws and complexities, might offer something the Drellic had not found elsewhere. Aaron's heart pounded in his chest. He understood now. The Drellic weren't just seeking peace. They were seeking a species that could coexist with them, that wouldn't fall into the same patterns of destruction as the others they had encountered. They had hoped that humanity could be that species. But there was a deeper question nagging at Aaron's mind. Why peace? He asked. Why is peace so important to your people? Vron's hum deepened, and for the first time since their meeting, Aaron saw something in the alien's eyes that startled him, sorrow. It was faint, barely perceptible, but it was there. We were like them, Vron said, the words slow and heavy. Long ago. War. Destruction. Our world almost gone. We learn. We change. Aaron's breath hitched. The Drellic had once been like the others, warring, destructive. But something had happened, something that had pushed them to the brink of extinction. And in the aftermath, they had changed. They had chosen a different path. You learned the value of peace, Aaron said softly, more to himself than to Vron. Vron gave a slow, deliberate nod. Yes, we'd survive. But others do not. They have fight, destroy. We seek those who do not. Aaron felt a shiver run down his spine. The Drellic were not conquerors. They were survivors of their own violent past, searching the stars for species that could learn from their mistakes, species that could choose peace over conflict. And now, they had come to Earth, hoping humanity would be the one. But there was a bitter truth that Aaron knew he couldn't ignore. Humanity wasn't perfect. Earth had its own history of war and destruction, its own scars from centuries of conflict. Could he honestly tell Vron that humanity was different? Could he promise that his people wouldn't make the same mistakes as those other species? He hesitated, his mind racing. This was the moment. If he lied, if he painted a perfect picture of humanity, it might buy time, but it wouldn't build trust. He had to be honest. Vron had shared its people's painful history, and now, Aaron had to do the same. He looked up at Vron, meeting the alien's steady gaze. We've fought wars too, Aaron admitted, his voice low but steady. We've had conflicts, destruction. We've hurt each other. We're not perfect. Vron remained silent, watching him intently. But we also learn, Aaron continued, his heart pounding. We grow. We try to be better. We want peace. Not all of us. Not all the time. But many of us, people like me, believe in it. We want to coexist, to learn from each other. That's why I'm here, to show you that we're trying. There was a long silence. The weight of Aaron's words hung in the air, and he could feel his heart racing in his chest. Had he said too much? Would Vron see humanity's flaws as a sign of weakness, of danger? But then, slowly, Vron moved. The alien's long arm reached out once more, this time with more certainty. Its fingers hovered in the air between them, a gesture of connection, of trust. Aaron exhaled slowly and extended his hand, placing it lightly against Vron's. The contact was brief, but in that moment, he felt something profound pass between them, an understanding, a recognition that both species had their scars, their wounds. But they also had hope. Vron made a low, resonant hum, and though the alien didn't speak, Aaron knew what it meant. This was the beginning. Fragile, tentative, but real. They would take the next steps together. Aaron's hand lingered in the air for a moment longer after Vron withdrew its own. There was an undeniable shift in the atmosphere. Something had changed between them. The silence that followed was no longer heavy with tension, but instead carried a sense of mutual understanding. Aaron wanted to ask more questions, to learn about the Drellic and their history. But before he could speak, the low hum that had permeated the ship grew louder. He turned his head slightly, realizing that the hum wasn't coming from Vron this time. It was coming from outside. The earpiece in Aaron's ear crackled to life. Blake, something's happening. We're picking up unusual energy readings. Are you safe in there? Aaron's heart skipped a beat. What kind of readings? He asked, his voice tinged with concern. High-frequency energy coming from the Drellic ship. We're not sure what it is, but it's escalating quickly. The higher-ups are getting nervous. Aaron turned back to Vron, who stood still, seemingly unaffected by the noise. But Aaron knew better. Something was happening. Something that could potentially unravel everything they had built in these last few moments. Vron, Aaron said carefully, there's a disturbance outside. My people, they're getting nervous. Can you stop it? Can we prevent any misunderstandings? Vron's dark eyes flickered, the alien's body humming softly in response. Aaron felt a surge of anxiety in his chest. If the Drellic's actions were misinterpreted, if the military reacted too quickly, this fragile piece could be destroyed in an instant. I need you to trust me, Aaron said, taking a step forward. Tell me what's happening. Let me help. For a moment, Vron stood motionless, and Aaron feared that his words had fallen on deaf ears. But then, slowly, Vron raised one of its elongated arms and gestured toward the walls of the ship. The smooth, dark surfaces began to shimmer again, and Aaron watched as the room transformed into a display of light and energy. In the center of the room, a pulsing orb of light hovered, an image of the Drellic ship itself. Tendrils of energy spiraled out from the orb, reaching toward the sky, their movements chaotic and uncontrolled. Energy, Vron said, its voice low and heavy. Our ship communicates. With us. With others. Aaron's eyes widened. The ship wasn't just a vessel, it was a living entity, part of the Drellic's communication system. But the energy it was emitting wasn't something the humans outside would understand. To them, it could look like a threat, a weapon being powered up. I understand, Aaron said quickly, his mind racing. But we need to stop it for now. My people don't understand what's happening. They'll see it as an attack. Vron's eyes flickered with what Aaron could only describe as hesitation. The alien turned its gaze back to the orb of energy, and for a moment, Aaron wondered if the Drellic were capable of stopping what had already been set in motion. Could Vron even control the ship's energy output? Before he could ask, the earpiece crackled again, this time with urgency. Blake, we've got orders from command. If the energy readings spike any higher, we'll have to take action. Get out of there. Aaron's chest tightened. No, don't do anything, he said quickly. Give me more time. I can stop this. There was a pause on the other end, and then the voice came through again, laced with tension. You've got 5 minutes. After that, we have no choice." Aaron's pulse quickened. He looked at Vron, his voice steady but pleading. "Please, I know you came here for peace, but we're running out of time. If you don't stop the ship's energy output, my people will attack. It'll undo everything we've worked for." Vron stood still for a moment longer, and Aaron feared the worst. But then, with a soft hum, the alien reached out toward the shimmering orb of light. The tendrils of energy began to recede, slowly at first, and then more rapidly. The pulse of the ship's energy grew quieter, the lights dimming until the room returned to its original dark, sleek appearance. Aaron let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice filled with relief. Vron turned to face him, its large eyes calm but serious. "Trust difficult," the alien said softly, "but we try." Aaron's earpiece crackled again. "Blake, what's happening? The energy's dropping." "It's under control," Aaron said, his voice shaky but filled with determination. "The Drellic aren't a threat. They're willing to work with us. But we need to give them a chance. Stand down." There was a long pause, and Aaron held his breath. If Command didn't trust him, if they didn't believe what he was saying, everything could still fall apart. But after a few tense seconds, the voice came back. "Understood. We're standing down." Aaron exhaled, feeling a wave of relief wash over him. He turned back to Vron, gratitude filling his chest. "We did it. You trusted me. And it worked." Vron gave a slow, deliberate nod. "You trust us. We trust you." The moment felt monumental, as if the weight of two worlds had shifted in a single gesture of faith. Aaron knew there was still a long road ahead. There would be challenges, misunderstandings, and difficult conversations, but they had taken the first step together, and that was what mattered. "Peace is never easy," Aaron said softly, echoing the lessons Vron had shared, "but it's worth fighting for." Vron's deep hum resonated through the room, and for the first time, Aaron felt something akin to hope between them. Humanity and the Drellic had their differences, their scars, but in this fragile moment, they had chosen peace over conflict. Together, they would walk the path toward understanding.